What's wrong with you?
And we are back now.
God.
Hope you enjoyed that break. I did. Yes, we're gonna be jumping into this mid-series, continuing at mid-series. And Titan Delta, we're over here in the top left-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in the top left. We have our red Protoss player coming out from the land of China. They speak Mandarin there. He is, of course, going to be representing Offside Gaming. Minus Gabe, we have Firefly.
And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the South Korean Zerg player, the Blue Zerg representing Weibo Gaming. It is soO. He speaks Mandarin.
Exactly.
God. As we are going to be settling in now, we did miss out on game one, unfortunately. Did occur off stream, and there was no one covering it. But now we're jumping in and we're filing into game number 2 to determine who makes it into the semi-finals. Dark is lying in wait for the winner of the series. Will it be a Zerg or a Protoss? We're here to find out.
Indeed we shall. Dark already having some good practice against both Protoss and Zerg, but now we're going to see whether it's gonna be a Protoss or a Zerg.
Exactly. We're here to determine. For the time being, it is going to be a hatch against full standard open out of soO. Against soO, he already brought down Beyond. Clearly, he is ready for the ZvTs, but what about the ZvPs?
So we're about to find out. I have to wonder what went on in game number 1. I mean, like I said, nobody was covering it, but I have to imagine it was somewhat mid-game oriented, just looking at both of our players.
Yeah, and the length as well, right? It's like it was a bit of a longer game, so I'm sure we were able to embrace the mid game here, and we'll see where we take it this time. soO, we have seen that he is one not to shy away from 3-way all-ins, but as you mentioned last time, like this map isn't really conducive to that. So, I mean, for a Nidus could work, sure, don't get me wrong, but outside of that, it can be difficult to really go for a Queen Walk or a German taxi or anything like that. I imagine soO is going to be joining up instead.
Yeah, typically what he is known for, just getting up to a 3-base economy at the very least, and then getting ready for, again, that more of that mid-game play. That's usually where he shines. He's not typically one to go for a lot of lings in the early game or anything like that. No. soO, he's all about them Hydras.
Yeah, it's all about them Hydras, Bappy, and here we go. For now, we're just going to be droning up. We have our Lings poised and ready across the map. Basically, if this Adept ever moves out, then the Lings will be moving in. So soO is lying in wait. Meanwhile, Oracle moving out across the map. It was a Stargate opener into Oracle. Standard stuff here at a Firefly. Nothing too crazy yet, as we are attempting to expand and take our third.
Just like so. Oracle here. It's a little bit of an escort for this probe. This is the most important feeling probe in the world right now.
Oh yeah. Very important probe here for Firefly. Does live, does survive, does get the third base up and running, and that is a fast forge.
Yeah, that's a fast forge, and we're keeping the Oracle back at home, which tells me that Firefly, since he's not going across the map to harass, is just building up for a very potent +1 timing.
This is interesting. This could be for it's been months since I've seen this build. This looks like fast +1 into fast +2 into Colossus timing. It is a robo follow-up, and I imagine this is going to be for Bay. We'll see if that's going to be the case here. Basically what's happening here, big delay of the Twilight Council, right? Because we're delaying the Twilight Council, we're delaying any kind of gateway composition and gateway aggression. This looks like just a really tech heavy and a really kind of a mid to late game oriented opener.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll see if that ends up paying off here for Firefly. soO is not really looking to punish this too hard back home. I mean, he made a couple of lings, but those are safety lings. He is very much focused on just droning up. He's grabbing his Roach Warren, but it feels like more of a safety Roach Warren than anything.
Yeah, it was
so I feel like Firefly's probably going to be able to get away with this.
Yeah, it was Showtime. Showtime used to do this. And
there we go.
which would make sense just because, again, you're delaying your upgrades, delaying specifically like Charge and Blink and all that stuff, and focusing on Immortals into Colossus. We'll see if that's going to be the case here. Firefly does go into the Twilight Council, so we'll eventually work towards an upgrade of choice for his Gateway units, or he could just delay even further and go for a Temple Archives and go into Archons.
Yeah, he's got a lot of options on his hands as we get into our mid-game. But for the time being, he is a little bit vulnerable, so it's really important for him right now with these Oracles to try to keep soO on his own side of the map.
As the Oracles, they head towards the natural base. 6 drones going to be going down. Very nicely done here out of Firefly, getting a lot of damage. And again, you can see here, still no upgrade. Like, again, like, we don't really care about it. Blink is now on the way, but it's heavily delayed. And we're just focusing on saturating our bases, getting to more Immortals, and getting into our mid-game.
I like it, so. Very much of a gentleman's agreement coming out from soO and Firefly here. Not something you witness every day in ESL Open Cup Asia.
Yeah, considering, as you're kind of alluding to, soO is also droning. He's just droning up. Now we have some roaches on the way, just so we can have a presence on the map. But for the most part, we're getting ready for a longer game as well. Droning up as much as we can. Likewise, back at home, then we got Infestation bit on the way out of soO, getting ready to take up into Hive Tech.
Well, all right, and we said we were in for a little bit of a longer one, but we are rushing right into the end game, or rather, we're getting into the end game as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and this is going to be an interesting variation as we get a couple more drone kills here at the third base. There's going to be 3 more worker kills by the Oracles, but what I'm getting at is that Blink is lined up with +2. +2 and Blink are going to finish up at around the same time. We just went for a Gateway Explosion, and now we are up to, I believe, 8 gates, and that is a lot of sentries. I thought we were going to be taking up into Colossus, but we did not throw down the bait. Instead, we're going for a really interesting +2 Soul Train.
Huh. It's been a while since we've seen this. I'm just cannot keep my eyes off this one probe going around the gateway on the gas. But yeah, it's an interesting way that we're going about this. A little bit more old school coming out from Firefly, but one that can absolutely still hit like a truck. Especially when you don't have a lot of units on the map like soO does.
Yeah,
or soO doesn't have.
And because the early to mid game has been so passive from Firefly, he's hoping that soO is maybe a little bit too greedy. And soO has drawn up to 80, is now taking into a Hydra Lurker Viper. But right now he's stuck with Roaches right now. And he is a little bit vulnerable. And here we go, Firefly, he's going for his push. He's going for his timing. Blink and +2 finishing up just in time for this attack.
It's gonna hit like a truck, it's gonna hit like a train, and soO doesn't have the best army to deal with this. I mean, he's got Ravagers out now, he can try to file down some of these force fields, but this is still a Protoss army that is designed to kill Roaches.
Yeah, and we're getting out of control. Roaches and Ravagers are falling one after the other, and we're just maintaining our army. We barely lose anything. We blink aggressively, a Patience blink here, but this time it's gonna work out as we are breaking through whatever soO has left.
Yeah, a couple of battles will land, but there's just nothing left here that could really clean up the weakened units. GG is called, and Firefly will take a very comfortable game number 2 and the series. Jeez. It's not just PvT by the looks of things here from Firefly. Being able to 2-0 Oliveira and now 2-0ing soO as well. Insane result.
Yeah, that was a really, really crazy game. Like, basically Firefly had a build, he just executed it beautifully, and he just won. Like, like he just executed his timing, like +2, blink, it all lined up. He moved out with his Immortals, with his sentries. To be fair, like, it wasn't just the build itself, but if you remember leading up to it, we killed a lot of workers. The Oracles were popping off across the map. They were really hindering soO and allowing for that eventual push to snowball out of control.
Yeah, just like so. It also feels like a build that very specifically is meant to counter soO and soO's kind of playstyle, because compared to most of the other Zerg players, especially when it comes to the Korean Zerg players, soO is known for being probably the most passive, at least in the early game. He is a player who likes to just focus on getting his bases up and running, and then he'll move out into the map, but that also allows Firefly to have a lot of map control, to get up to his 3 bases quite quickly, and as you pointed out, be very, very greedy when it comes to his tech. He got that Forge, and he was working off of, I think, like 2 gates for a very, very long time.
Yeah, it was a lot that Firefly was able to get away with, and I'm just really interested because it was a unique build. No one else is doing this. No one else is doing what Firefly just did. Again, it's been months since I've seen this and even then, like the variation that I saw was not for a Blink timing, but for a Colossus timing. So this was its own kind of spin on things. So yeah, I'm really interested to see the thought process behind Firefly, whether he came up with this himself, whether it's just an older build that he whipped out, and yeah, it just came out of left field. And again, soO was not ready for this at all. He had no idea what the hell was going on. We were trying to piece it together ourselves.
Yeah. It was like we had a vague idea of what the end result was probably gonna be, but we didn't really, we couldn't figure out what the details were, how Firefly was gonna bridge us from that start of the game to the end of the push.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
the start of the build to the end of the push. Very much.
It was impressive. Very impressive play there out of Firefly. Solid execution of his overall build as well. And with that, Firefly advances on to the semifinals where he has his opponent ready and waiting.
Yeah, going to be yet another Zerg player in front of him. And on the one hand, Dark is a very different type of player from soO. I can't imagine a build like that working out against Dark, who is much more active in the early game. But on the other hand, it's Firefly.
True. Can never believe your eyes, Papi. But yeah, as you mentioned, he is, I should say, Dark is a much more aggressive and a much more assertive player, so it's going to be difficult to really get away with a build like that. Meanwhile, the lobby is ready, and we are jumping in. Vetoes are done. Up next, we have our first semifinals of the night. It is going to be that ZvP.